Good morning, everybody. It is Sunday, December 4th, 2022. College football season is a wrap. This is main coverage with Knoxville Dayton and Mr. James Bonneville. James, how are you doing this morning, sir?
Any better would be a crime. I mean, technically it's not quite over yet. We still got Army Navy next week, but I agree with you 100%. It's in all seriousness, it's over.
No, I know. I'm glad you actually mentioned that because I love the Army Navy game and I don't want to downplay it. I was just talking about like Army and Navy aren't playing for the title this year.
Yeah,
So
yeah, exactly.
The college football playoff is a wrap, but we do need to discuss what happened yesterday. Couple things we predicted, honestly. I don't know why people are so shocked that Utah beat USC. Utah is a damn good football team. Utah beat USC already this year. And then on Friday night at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas, Nevada, they kicked the crap out of them and pushed them all over the field. This is something that we predicted. I thought USC was the most overrated team in the country.
Yeah.
Coaching staff at Utah, I think, is first rate. I think their team is a very good team. The thing that surprised me the most about Utah this year was that they lost a couple of games that I didn't expect them to. You know, the loss at Florida where they Cam Rising through the interception in the end zone, and a couple of the other games, kind of surprised me. But Friday didn't surprise me at all. What did you think about the game Friday night between Utah and USC for the Pac-12 championship?
Honestly, it's everybody who denies Kyle Whittingham, you do it at your own peril. I mean, I am just blown away by this guy every freaking time I turn around. I mean, all he does, he outcoaches people time and time again. It's impressive watching him. I mean, it is just mind-blowing watching how good of a coach he is. And like we were talking yesterday, the guy's been coaching for 20 years, yet people still underestimate him. I don't know how. I mean, it blows me away just to sit there and think about how people underestimate how unbelievably talented this guy truly is. I mean, am I wrong in saying that?
No, he is one of the best coaches in the country, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What I think he does more with less than anybody else that I can think of. And I don't understand why he doesn't get more talk than he does. I really think that some people don't give him the credit because he's at Utah, I guess. But I don't understand why. I just don't understand it. Let's talk about since 2018, Utah has been in the championship game every year.
Yeah.
Except for, 2020, the COVID year, which in my opinion, honestly, didn't really count. There was nobody there. And it was just kind of a weird year. So we can kind of throw that one out. But 2018, Utah is in the championship game. 2019, they're in the championship game. 2021, they win and beat Oregon. 2022, they play USC and beat them. I mean, this team is back-to-back Pac-12 championships under their belt. I don't understand why people are surprised about it. I really wasn't. And we predicted this to happen. I didn't predict that they would beat them that bad. The score was 47-24, but honestly, it could have been worse. And I was kind of shocked by the way they dismantled them. Were you shocked at all by how bad they pushed them around?
I mean, Utah has. You look back at the years, Utah always starts off slow, always. And it's kind of like what Pat Fitzgerald used to be. And it would become like game 7. You do not want to play Pat Fitzgerald in the second half of the year, but continually, Kyle Whittingham, his teams get stronger and stronger and stronger as the year goes on. And I mean, look at it. He did it again. I mean, just the second half adjustments. I mean, it wasn't even a game in the second half. It was destruction. I mean, am I wrong in saying that? I mean, seriously, I mean, honestly, I look at that USC game, and if they would have played in the second half the way against UCLA. UCLA beats them and beats them handily.
I agree. I didn't understand really the game plan from Coach Lincoln Riley over there. I wasn't really sure what they were trying to do. I mean, I guess it was throw it early and often, but I didn't really understand why they didn't try and run the ball more.
Yeah.
You know, they just tried to throw it every down. You know, I understand that when Caleb Williams got injured or faked an injury or whatever, you know, they kind of went away from the run, whereas they were running the ball pretty early and they just went away from it. I mean, 41 times throwing the football. You know, they couldn't really protect him. They were getting, you know, Utah was getting after him all game. I believe they finished with 7 sacks. You know, that to me was what we talked about all year long. The offensive and defensive line of USC was really their only weakness, and it got exposed on Friday night versus this Utah team. I just like the way that Utah gets after it. And I think that, you know, Utah is, I know they've lost 3 games, but I think they're a top 10 team. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. I mean, honestly, if there was ever a year that we need a 12-team playoff, it's this year.
I agree.
I mean, there are teams that have 3 losses that honestly should be in the playoffs, and it would be interesting to see how that all would play out, because I mean, there's teams that with 1 or 2 losses that are trying to get in. Yes, I'm talking about you, Alabama. That honestly, if Utah and Alabama play today, I would take Utah. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would probably, but I still think that both of those teams deserve to be in it.
Yeah.
I think that they both are good enough, and like you said, I think this is the best year where it really shows us that we need a 12-team playoff, because there's 12 teams that deserve to be in it. I mean, there really is, and there's 12 teams that have a shot. That could at least get in, or at least 8 teams, maybe not 12, but there's 8 teams that have a shot to get into this dance and should have the opportunity to play for a national championship. Now, that's not going to happen because, you know, the way that it is, so to speak, we've got to wait. But, you know, I do think that this is a very good indicator of why we need a 12-team playoff. There's more sometimes than 4 teams that deserve a shot. But we talked about the offensive line of USC. How about the offensive line of Utah? They run for 223 yards and average 6.4 yards a carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. Very impressed by the offensive line of Utah. What did you think about Utah's offense last night, and what did you think about their ability to run the football?
Change the name on the back of the jersey, and it's the same darn thing every single year out of Utah. I mean, it is Kyle Whittingham, his teams, their identity stays the same year to year to year to year. And it impresses me so much. Their running backs are always very downhill. Like, they're very aggressive. And their defenses, I mean, honestly, their defense this year, I would say, is a downgrade compared to past years. They weren't as good in their back 7 as they usually are. But they're physical up front. They're always just had this, you punch them in the face, they're going to punch you right back. And it didn't shock. I mean, the only thing that shocked me was the number of how much they won by. That's the only thing that shocked me. Is I did not expect going into this game that Utah would just literally own USC. I mean, heck, they outscored USC 40-7 to close the game.
Oh yeah,
40-7.
I mean, it was a pistol whipping. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
I'm sorry, 44-7. I apologize. Don't want to disrespect the Utes.
Yeah, no, it was a pistol whipping. There's no doubt about it. And We've got a comment here, a question. I don't know why Alabama thinks they're getting in. Yeah, we might as well go ahead and address that right now. I mean, I understand that Bama has been the best football team over the past since Saban got there. Let's be honest, pretty much since his second season at the helm, Alabama has been the best football team in college football year in, year out. Definitely the most consistent. They've won how many titles? 7, I believe, national championships, and they've deserved every single one of them. But they don't deserve to get in this year. I don't understand why all of a sudden the 2 losses don't matter. I don't know why. We value, we put all this emphasis on the regular season all year long, and then it comes to the end of the year, and now we're supposed to forget that they lost twice, including 1 loss to LSU has proved to be not that great of a team. What do you think about Bama, James, and do they have any shot to get voted in tomorrow?
Ask yourself this question: what is Bama's best
Today.
win? What's Bama's best win
this year?
Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. I don't know. I guess maybe Ole Miss.
Texas?
Yeah, I mean, I guess Texas or Ole Miss. They don't really have a signature win. I mean, that's the reason that, in my opinion, that they're getting left out of this thing. They don't really have a signature win. I mean, this schedule this year, didn't set up that great for them. Texas A&M didn't end up being a good team. Arkansas, which was one of their ranked wins, turned out to be not as good as advertised. I'd say probably Ole Miss is probably their best win. Maybe Texas. Those two games, and neither one of those wins really impresses me much.
And in Texas, they didn't have Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers was lighting them up like a freight train, and he didn't play probably 2.5 quarters. If Quinn Ewers plays that whole game, I think Texas wins. They'd have a last-second field goal to win. When you look at head-to-head opponents between Texas and TCU, I mean, it was a low-scoring game, but TCU was in control of that game. I mean, heck, the only touchdown Texas scored was on a fumble return. They only got 199 yards total offense, yet against Alabama. I mean, let's see here. How many yards did they get? They got total 371. So almost double the amount of yards against Alabama. I mean, if we're going to look at like-size opponents, let's look at that.
Yeah.
But the SEC is not the SEC of the past, and getting in the college football playoff is not a lifetime achievement award.
No, you're not going to get rewarded for what you've done in other years. I don't think that's not part of it. That's not part of it that goes into the equation.
Then if we're going to do that, why aren't we talking about Clemson?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, why aren't we talking about Clemson? If we're going to talk about lifetime achievement, Clemson should be talked about.
Yeah. Clemson,
they got 2 losses.
Yeah, they're not getting in either.
No.
So I really don't understand why Alabama is even being discussed. I don't think that they're going to get in. I think they're pretty much done. They didn't win the games they should have. I mean, maybe if they win that game at Tennessee and they hit that field goal at the end and they stop Hendon Hooker and the Vols from going down and kicking their field goal, maybe we're talking about them here, but we're not. They didn't make it to the championship game, and they didn't win their side of the conference. They didn't win the conference overall, and they've got 2 losses. I mean, that's the biggest thing right there. It's been proven that you don't have to win the conference to get in, but you do have to at least have one of the best records, and they don't have that. So I think Bama's pretty much done. Let's jump over to the other game last night. As far as the Big Ten championship goes, this game kind of went as we thought it would go. The Big Ten West just sucks. I mean, let's be honest. Let's call a spade a spade. The Big Ten West is an utter disappointment. Thank God that UCLA and USC are going to the Big Ten, so they have to do something about the divisions. I think that's sometimes why teams or why people don't give the teams in the Big Ten a fair shake, is because they look over at the Big Ten West and the Big Ten West is just consistently disappointing. What did you think about Michigan winning the game last night, and how good do you think this Michigan team is? Do you see them having the ability to beat Georgia this year after failing to do it last year?
Well, first let's talk about the game. Honestly, the biggest difference in the game, I mean, you look at the score, you're going to say Michigan blew them out, and they did on the scoreboard. But the biggest difference was when it came down to it, Purdue had drives that they just couldn't convert on.
True. Several fourth down stops. Yeah. And a couple of interceptions from Aiden O'Connell. He threw for 366 yards and threw 0 touchdowns.
Yeah. I mean, who this year has thrown for 300 on Michigan? I mean, seriously. And Aiden O'Connell goes for 366. It was basically the red zone offense that really killed them in this game. I mean, we were talking about this before. You've got to walk on in Aiden O'Connell. You've got to walk on in Devin Mockabee. You've got to walk on in Charlie Jones. And look what Jeff Brom should get a lot of credit for what he's done at Purdue, because Michigan is just loaded with 4 and 5 stars and high 3 stars. But Michigan was the better team. No questions asked. Now, the key is going to be in this game, if Michigan moves on to play Georgia in SoFi, how are they going to defend those tight ends against Georgia? Because last year, that was the biggest problem. Brock Bauer had a freaking field day, and Michigan looked lost on defense, which, when have you seen Michigan ever look lost? And J.J. McCarthy's got to step up. I mean, Donovan Edwards is really playing good football. I did not expect him to be this good when Blake Corum dropped out. Did you?
I don't know if I necessarily did, but a couple of people that cover Michigan and a couple of my Michigan buddies have told me that Edwards was better. And I was kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how can you even say that after the season that Blake Corum had? And they were like, well, just watch, because he's going to get to play now. And I did watch, and I've watched him play against Ohio State, and I've watched him play against Purdue. And I got to be honest, he might be better. He seems to be a little bit faster. He seems to run just as tough. He seems to be able to hit the holes a little quicker. This guy is one of the best running backs I've seen this year. And I think, they lost their Heisman Trophy candidate running back, and it hasn't slowed them down at all.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, I did think it would affect them more than it has. And I think we have to point to Donovan Edwards for that.
Well, I mean, I think somebody who doesn't get near the credit he deserves is the all Big Ten center, the transfer from Virginia, Old Autonomy. And I probably am mispronouncing the hell out of his name, so I really apologize for that. But that kid, that's the matchup I'm really looking forward to, is watching him against Jalen Carter if they go for the national championship. I mean, that is going to be one hell of a matchup, because you look at when Michigan runs the ball, they're not going outside the tackles. They're beating you inside between the guards. And whoever wins that is going to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's who we need to give the love to, is the offensive line for Michigan. Yeah. I mean, they played another stellar game last night. They ran for 225 yards, 6 yards a carry. They ran for 3 touchdowns. And it was like every time that it was 4th and 1 and Purdue had a chance to, 4th and 1, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and short, the Purdue defense just could not stop Michigan's running attack. And Jim Harbaugh would go for it every single time. And as well he should have, because they really could not stop them. So I give a lot of credit to the Michigan offensive line. I don't believe that Purdue, in fact, I'm almost 100% positive Purdue did not have a sack all night long. And that was one of the things that really stuck out to me was, last year you watched Purdue play and they had Karlaftis, as well as, a couple of guys on the opposite side that would benefit from Karlaftis and get back in the backfield. Yeah. This year they just don't have that edge rusher that Purdue typically has. And I think that was one of the big reasons why they struggled to win this game. Was they had no pass rush, 0 sacks on him, and they just didn't have anybody that was disrupting Michigan and getting in the backfield. Do you agree with that?
100%. I mean, there was one play where it looks like J.J. McCarthy was playing playground football, where he
Yeah,
was running all over the place, and it looks like he's just going to throw the ball just away, and it ends up being like a 25-yard gain. Like he throws it against his body,
I saw that.
and it was just like, holy crap! I'm like, this is just crazy. How, I mean, very much un-Harbaugh like. I mean, you go back throughout. God, Lloyd Carr. I mean, any coach at Michigan, they don't make that throw. And J.J. McCarthy makes it and converts on it. Now, would that work as well against Georgia's D-backs with Ringo and who's the other broad corner? I'm drawing a blank here with Keely Ringo and you know who I'm talking about. I don't know. I don't think you can get that aggressive against them because they are ball hawks. No questions asked.
Yeah, well, let's stop talking about Michigan because it's going to make me throw up. So let's just move on. They're in they're in the college football playoff. Congratulations. Let's talk about something else. Okay, we got to talk a little bit about the SEC championship game before we move on. The first half was kind of rough for LSU. Jaden Daniels. Through the interception, he really could not. What we've seen from Jaden Daniels all year is him having the ability to run the football. He kind of drops back and looks like he's going to pass, and then he just takes off because that's what he does. And he had the ability to, get some yardage with his feet. Last night, 6 carries for -6 yards. His longest run was a 5-yard scamper. This Georgia front is one of the best that I've seen. And that's crazy to think about considering all the guys they lost after last year. So, 15 guys they lost to the NFL draft, not just on defense, but on the whole team. But they lost a lot of dudes up front. They lost a lot of linebackers. I think they lost 3 linebackers to the draft. And it hasn't slowed down their run defense at all. Now, it looked like when Nussmeier came in, the LSU opportunity to win went way up because they did have the ability to throw the football a little bit better with Nussmeier back there. And I think maybe they should have started him at the beginning because he did have the ability to throw the ball on Georgia a little bit. And if they convert a couple of those fourth downs, this game could have been a little bit closer. What did you think about the SEC championship and Georgia's performance?
Well, I mean, honestly, this has been our comment about Jaden Daniels all year is he locks on his primary. And if he doesn't see his primary, he starts running. And I mean, Kirby Smart's a smart freaking defensive coach. He probably picked up on that. And I mean, this is the only game Keyshawn Butte had over 100 yards all year long. For a guy who's a first-round draft pick, how in the world is this guy not getting targeted like all the time? Like literally all the time.
Because they didn't have anyone to throw it to him.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, that's why when they brought Daniels in, I mean, I knew Nussmeier has an arm. I mean, his dad, offensive mind. I mean, his dad was a hell of a college quarterback, offensive minded, offensive coordinator. I mean, he was an offensive coordinator at Alabama for a spell. He knows how to play the game. And I didn't understand why they didn't use Nussmeier more.
Yeah, I think the second half showed that he should have been the starting quarterback to begin the game. And, I understand why they went with Daniels at the time. But I think Nussmeier is the better option moving forward. And once again, we have Brian Kelly with quarterback problems. It's been an issue with him his entire coaching career, except for maybe some of the years with Ian Book. But other than that, that's been the issue with him. Now, I still think LSU going 9-4 and 6-2 in the SEC conference. I think that was a win for LSU and for Brian Kelly. Do you agree with that?
I am blown away that they went. I mean, they had no depth this year, and their entire team was a bunch of transfer guys. I mean, it just shows you how good a coach Brian Kelly truly is, of how he could really change that around. And now give him time to recruit in Louisiana. I mean, that could be scary because, I mean, this guy literally lives on building strong offense and defensive lines. and he can find that talent down there. I mean, LSU has proven time and time again of getting strong offense and defensive linemen throughout the years through Saban on up.
Yes, I agree. I think he's going to love being down there because there is a ton of talent in the state. And also, he'll be able to pull guys from Mississippi and from Alabama and from all over the South. Especially with that accent he's got going on. He's just going to walk into homes and just win over the hearts of people with that Southern twang. But no, in all seriousness, I do think, this program was kind of a mess last year.
Just making it to the SEC title game is a victory.
That's huge.
I mean, who really thought that LSU was going to win this game? I mean, hell,
Nobody.
They lost to Texas A&M last week. I mean, just the SEC West is just not good. It's just not good.
No, the SEC West, this is the worst I've seen the SEC West in a long, long time.
I mean, you've probably got to go back to when Steve Spurrier was still at Florida, or Urban Meyer was at Florida. Because remember, it was always like the East was good, the West sucked. The West was good, the East sucked. Now, I mean, I think we're going back to the West isn't that good. I mean, we're thinking someone was going to take that next step, and nobody did.
No, they wanted Ole Miss to be good. They kept on and kept on with Ole Miss and wanting to put them in the top 10, and they just proved time and time again they were not even close to a top 10 team. LSU, they put LSU at 5 at one point. LSU is not a top 5 team and never was, and I never agreed with that. I thought that was, just putting them up there because they had to. They wanted to get an SEC West team up there to look good, and they were not a top 5 team, and neither is Bama. I'm sorry, but Bama is just not a top 5 team this year. We can go into discussion all day long about why, but they're just not. Let's jump over real quick because we probably should have talked about this game sooner, but let's talk a little bit about the Big 12 championship. Kansas State was in charge of this game.
Yeah.
Fourth quarter, they're up 28-17. They've got the ball. I was like, this game's over. Well, TCU holds them. They punt, and then TCU starts going on a little run, and it kind of looked to me like Kansas State kind of dropped back in kind of a prevent defense and they looked more like they were trying not to lose the game instead of to win it, which whenever you do that F's you 10 ways from Sunday. You got to keep doing what you've been doing all day. You've been running the same defense. You've been running the same offense. You're up by 11 points. Keep doing what you're doing, but they didn't. And TCU climbs back in this game and sends it to overtime. So, it looked a lot closer to me than it was. You agree with that?
100%. I mean, honestly, I was shocked that they allowed TCU to get back in the game. I mean, let's be honest, Quentin Johnston is such a good receiver, but you got to keep playing aggressive on him at all times. I mean, he's just the one guy on K-State that really impressed me is Julius Brents. I mean, I really can be honest with you. I didn't know much about this guy this year, but he is impressed me. He's a 6'4" corner. Yeah. How many 6'4" corners do you know of? Not many.
Not many. Can't name one off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, this kid is unreal. I mean, originally was an Iowa commit, transfers out, goes to K-State. I mean, this kid is really good. I mean, there was a play where he was lined up as an outside linebacker and the guard pulled and he chopped the guard and it blew up the play. Miller had to jump over the two of them and allowed the linebacker to come up and hit him for a 1-yard loss. I was just really impressed by this kid. I mean, I think this is a kid who really could play at the next level wherever he gets drafted, because I think he will get drafted.
I agree. And this game, the stars showed up. I mean, Max Dugan took it upon himself to bring TCU back. He's like, oh, you're gonna drop back and pretend like you've won this game with 11 minutes left. He's like, hell no. And he just started running the football. He didn't really impressed me throwing the ball. In fact, he struggled throwing the ball all day, 18 of 36, 251 in a pick, 1 touchdown. Didn't really impress me with his arm, but when the game was on the line, he just started tucking and running. And, at one point he had to be helped off the field. I think a couple points of the game, he had to be helped off the field because he was out of breath. 15 carries, 110 yards. I see why. This guy was the big ticket. And as you mentioned, Quinn Johnson, 4 catches, 139 yards. He showed up. On the opposite side, Deuce Vaughn had a really good game, 26 carries, 130 yards. Also caught a couple passes. But I wasn't overly impressed with Will Howard. Now, he did have the 2 touchdown passes, but other than that, I wasn't blown away by his performance. What did you think about the Kansas State offense and Deuce Vaughn?
Honestly, I think if Malik Knowles doesn't get hurt, I think we're talking a different game. I think it doesn't go to overtime and this game gets blown out. Him getting hurt really, they don't have depth at receiver. Your next best option is what? Cade Warner? He's Kurt Warner's kid. He was a walk-on at Nebraska, and he's not that fast. Sure, he's got good hands, but, anytime he was getting caught, they were running zone and the safety forgot about him. It's Chris Kleinman's a hell of a coach. This team is built really on a very similar identity of what he did at North Dakota State. Offense and defensive line really dictate the game. And now they're Big 12 champs.
Yeah, Kansas State pushed TCU around when it mattered most. Especially towards the end of the game. That was pretty impressive. And what did you think about the goal line stand in overtime where they had the ball? I believe it was on 2nd down at the 1 and couldn't get in. I thought that was just a show of right there of who Kansas State was.
I thought, honestly, the 3rd down was a touchdown. I was kind of shocked they didn't call that. But
I thought it was a fumble.
The 4th down, he wasn't even close.
No, the 3rd down, he reached out and dropped the ball. Someone knocked the ball out of his hands.
Yeah,
and that's why I didn't think it was. I know he recovered it, but I'm just saying I thought he fumbled the ball there, and I was kind of surprised they didn't review that.
I was too.
Not because I thought he scored, but because I thought it was a fumble. Now, as you mentioned, he did recover it, but that was interesting to me. What about the play calling on that sequence? I thought the play calling was a little conservative, to be honest. Especially when you've got a quarterback like that.
Well, K-State's defense, especially their defensive line, is rock solid. Why are you trying to play into their game? I'm shocked they didn't do a little play action rollout and drag Quentin Johnston on the backside.
That's what I'm talking about. You're trying to win the championship. You're trying to go to the Final Four. You're trying to play for a national title, and you just run it up the middle 3 times in a row. I'm like, come on, dude. You got to get a little bit more aggressive than that. And we give Sonny Dykes a lot of credit on this show, and he's done a tremendous job all year long. But I'm just sitting there thinking you've got it on 2nd down and less than a yard. And this is what we do. We run it 3 times in a row right up the middle and get stuffed by Kansas State. I just wasn't impressed with that sequence.
No, I agree with you 100%. And I'm a huge Sonny Dykes fan, and I thought this was probably one of his more questionable coaching moves down the stretch. He's usually more of a gunslinger. Heck, look what he did in the Baylor game.
Yeah, no doubt. But, so TCU loses. They're now, 12-1?
Yeah.
But they still get in, right?
I'm thinking they're in. I think they get the 4th spot. If you would have told me last night, I was thinking they're going to get the 3 because they don't want to put Michigan and Ohio State against each other in the semis. And now the more I think about it, they're going to put Michigan, Ohio State against each other in semis because it's going to be huge TV ratings. It's going to be massive TV ratings to see the rematch.
Well, I think you've got to stack it the way that it falls down.
Agreed.
I think you got to put number 1 as number 1. You got to put number 2 as number 2. You start trying to finagle matchups. That's not really what the committee's supposed to do. They're
Yeah,
supposed
but
to
they've done it before.
I know they have,
yeah.
but I'm just saying they're not really supposed to do that. They're supposed to pick the top 4 teams. They're supposed to, rate them 1 through 4 and set us up for the college football playoff. And I think that's what they should do. I do think, it's kind of disappointing TCU getting in after losing the conference championship game, but I think they get in. I mean, the body of work was there. I think the Big 12 was actually better than we anticipated it to be this year. It was
way
competitive.
Yeah,
it was a way deeper conference than we expected, and I think them winning 12 games in the regular season was enough to get them in. And as we talk about who are you going to put in besides them, that's my big thing. I don't think you can replace a TCU team that's 12-1 with a 2-loss Bama team.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hell, then why aren't we talking? If we're going to talk about 2-loss teams, why aren't we talking about USC?
Yeah.
I mean, they lost to 2 teams higher ranked, and it's the same damn team. But we all know that USC's not going to get in.
Yeah.
So I think we all could agree what Georgia, TCU in the Peach, Michigan, Ohio State in the Fiesta.
Yeah, I think so. And, I've sat here and listened to every moron under the sun talk about how, Ohio State got trucked. They don't deserve to get in. Well, yeah, they do. Their only loss is to the number 2 team in the country. Did they get beat? Yeah, they did. I mean, I'll be the first to admit it. The second half did not go as planned. But Ohio State had the game very much in control in the first half and was dominating them. And overall, they weren't dominating them on the scoreboard, but they were pushing them around a little bit, and they were dominating them in yardage and both offensively and defensively in the first half. So, yeah, okay, they lost 1 game. They played 1 bad half. They're still 11-1. They still have a chance to win this whole thing. And, you can't just put Bama in over them because you like Bama. I mean, I'm sorry, that's just not how it works. Ohio State was ranked number 5, or am I wrong? Wasn't Ohio State number 5?
Yeah, they were number 5.
They were number 5. Both these teams lost. Who moves in? Number 5 moves in, and I think this is actually very good because the Buckeyes deserve to play, in my opinion. You look at these other conferences and they take the top 2 teams. If you took the Big Ten, conference and did that, you would take Ohio State, Michigan. They would have played again for the Big Ten title. So I just think that the Buckeyes are in. I think they've got a good shot to make it. I think they're one of the teams that deserves to play for this. As me and you mentioned, we think there's 8 teams that should be in it. I mean, I don't know about 12, but I definitely think there's 8 teams that could play for this.
If there was any year that you could see a possibility of a team being 12 in that could win a national championship, it's this year. I mean, the parity is way better than it's been in years past. Way better.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about the 2 other games real quick that went on yesterday. Dabo finally pulls the plug on DJU, and what happens? His offense explodes, and they score 40 points and beat the crap out of North Carolina. To me, this just shows that he should have made this move a long time ago, don't you think?
Agreed.
I mean, we've been talking about it all year. This kid was 20 of 24. Let me repeat that. Cade Klubnik was 20 of 24 for 280 yards and a touchdown, and then he ran it 7 times for 30 yards and a touchdown. This offense looked like a completely different team with him at the helm.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it wouldn't shock me one bit that DJU will be transferring. I'm guessing either to UCLA, Washington. He's going somewhere on the West Coast. I think it's just inevitability.
I don't think Clemson cares. I think they're fine with that. I think they probably wish he would have transferred a long time ago because he just has proven to be not as good as advertised. He had a couple of games where he came in for Trevor Lawrence and he looked good, but it's harder to be good consistently. And when he's been the starter for the entire year, which has been 2 years now, it just hasn't looked good.
Now, I mean, you put him. I mean, let's take another example of Bo Nix, who did not look good. Now you look at him in Oregon. Hell, at one point we were talking about him for the Heisman Trophy.
I wasn't.
Yeah, I wasn't either. But he was in conversation.
Yeah.
And now you put DJU in a different offensive set. I mean, honestly, that's one thing I think a lot of people don't understand is not all players can play in all systems. I mean, and I think DJU in a different set, it'd be interesting to see what he does up in Washington under Kalen DeBoer, or heck, with Chip Kelly at UCLA and Westwood. I think you would see a completely different kid because I think, honestly, it's not ability. It's between years right now. I think he has a confidence problem.
I think you're right. I think you're right. I think he definitely, last year the talk was, this kid's not getting it done.
Yeah.
He needs to get better, and I think it started to affect him. I think you're right, but that's part of it. That's part of being the coach, part of being the quarterback, and living up to the coach's, what the coach wants you to do and getting it done, and he just didn't do it. So I don't understand why they stuck with him that long. I think they should have made the move. We watched that first game of the year where Clemson played Georgia Tech, and I was like, man, this looks exactly like the Clemson team from last year. And it didn't really get that much better all year long. And you know what? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm a better football coach than Dabo, because I'm not. He makes $9 million a year for a reason. He's got a couple of national championships. But I just think this was a mistake, and I think it may have cost him a shot to be playing for the title.
Yeah, I agreed.
Okay.
Agreed. No, I agree with you 100%. I mean, that Notre Dame game just said it all. I mean, that was just calling it 35-14 makes it sound somewhat close. It really wasn't.
It was 35-0 at halftime.
Yeah.
So Marcus Freeman really called the dogs off. So we'll see what happens as Clemson goes on. But I think this kid is your starting quarterback from here on out. And I think DJU finds a new home, and good for him. Maybe if he gets somewhere else, as we mentioned with Bo Nix and some of the other players, a change of scenery, works well. We already saw Cade McNamara took off from Michigan and left for Iowa. I didn't understand why Cade McNamara didn't leave Michigan at the start of the season and go to Iowa.
I didn't either. I that one made no sense to me because
why did he waste the whole year?
Yeah,
I don't get it. Why didn't he leave right after they named him the starter? They named JJ McCarthy the starter. Why did he not leave and go somewhere else right at that moment? He could have been playing all year long.
Well, honestly, did he even get 4 games in this year?
I would have to look at it. I would assume he probably did, but I would have to look it up. Because, think about all the blowouts they had. And he started the Colorado State game.
Yeah.
And then, they beat Hawaii 56-10. And I'm pretty sure he played in that game. He did. I think he probably did. I think he should have. The days of being, loyal to your team are kind of over. You're either the starter or you're not. And if you're not the starter, you bounce, and that's just kind of how it works, right?
He only played 3 games.
3 games?
Yep, he played the first 3 games of the year. Did not play 1 second in the Big Ten season.
Okay, all right.
So he's got that red shirt left.
Okay, cool. Well, that's good for him. That makes more sense. I was trying to figure out why he sat around all year. We got to give a little shout out to Coach Fritz at Tulane. They won the championship, the American Athletic Championship over UCF. Finished the year 11-2. Spears ran for 200 yards. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
What did you think about the year for Tulane football?
Willie Fritz is such an underrated coach that nobody knows about. I mean, this guy came up the hard way, and everywhere he's gone, he's won. I mean, that's why honestly, I think if they weren't playing for going to a New Year's Six bowl, I'm pretty sure Willie Fritz would have probably ended up at Georgia Tech. but I think they just couldn't wait for him to go to January to get this done. But look what, I mean, at Tulane of all places. I mean, this is a program that is highly underfunded in the American, and he has made them a very good team. I mean, heck, they went into Manhattan and beat K-State, who won the Big 12 title.
Yeah.
And Willie Fritz just keeps doing it time and time again. Is he a flashy recruiter? No. But look, I mean, at Tulane, he wins.
Yeah, it was very impressive. And, actually was very impressed with the quarterback play yesterday as well. Pratt threw for 394 yards and 4 touchdowns. So you had 200 yards on the ground, by Spears, and then you had 394 yards through the air. Where the hell did this offense come from? I mean, this Tulane green wave was rolling up and down the field yesterday.
This is literally the same offense he ran when he was at Sam Houston State. I mean, he is literally done an incredible job. I mean, you look at Spears, his best offer was from Tulane. I mean, he had offers from Southern Miss, Texas State. He's a Louisiana kid who stayed home. I mean, then he had Southeast Louisiana and McNeese State playing in FCS. I mean, this kid's a stud. This kid's an absolute stud.
1,400 yards on 212 carries. That's 6.5 per touch, folks, and 15 touchdowns. This kid was very impressive, and as me and you talked about, reminds me a little bit of Matt Forte.
Yeah, very much so.
The way that he runs. Not quite as good of a receiver, in my opinion, as Forte, but he does run the football in a similar fashion. So we're pretty much done here with the we got the Army-Navy game coming up next week, I believe. But other than that, there's nothing left for us to do except sit back and watch this Final Four get announced, and obviously the bowl games. And we'll be back next week to break all those bowl games down. We're going to probably do our Players of the Year next week, as well as James and I have already put together our Players of the Year for each conference, and we'll roll through that all next year. But today, I want to finish up by talking about the hire that went down. Coach Prime has been named the head coach for Colorado, and it's kind of crazy, man. I mean, I know we knew that they were talking to him. We knew that his name was being discussed, but what was your reaction when you heard that Coach Prime was definitely signing the dotted line and becoming the head coach at Colorado?
I think it's either going to work really well or it's going to bottom out. I mean, there's no in between about this. And I think he could make Colorado a bowl team next year if he works the transfer portal the way I believe he can. I think the biggest problem Colorado's going to have right now is NIL. But I think if he could set that up, it's going to be interesting to see who he brings with him from Jackson State from a coaching staff perspective. I mean, I would bet dime to a dollar Darian Hagan is going to be kept on the staff because he understands, one, the culture and thought process of Colorado football. And, quite frankly, Coach Prime needs that transition point. But another guy who I think he's going to bring in is his tight ends coach and his recruiting coordinator, and Tim Brewster. I mean, this is a guy who was with Dan Mullen, with Jimbo Fisher, with Mac Brown. I mean, this is a guy who helped flip Vince Young from LSU to Texas on signing day. This is a guy who flipped Chris Sims from Tennessee to Texas on signing day. This guy can recruit, plus he can develop tight ends. You may have heard of a guy named Antonio Gates.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think, I hope that Coach Hagan gets to stay on. Darian was always one of my favorite players, and we've had him on this show, and we are big fans of Coach Hagan. So, Coach, if you're watching,
absolutely,
we hope the first thing Coach Prime does is lock you up, because that's what should be done. The other thing is, I think he brings. You got to have a quarterback. And let's be honest, Colorado did not have a quarterback this year. They switched quarterbacks 3 times, starting quarterbacks 3 different times. One of the options was JT Shrout who played over here or tried to play over here at Tennessee, and just, in my opinion, is not a Power 5 college quarterback. And so if he brings his son with him, which he's going to do, right there, you got one of your biggest problems solved. And I think Shedeur Sanders can play in Power 5 football. I don't know what you think, but I think he's legit.
Oh, yeah.
I watched him play in high school. I've watched him play for Jackson. This kid is a real deal at quarterback, don't you think?
Absolutely. I think his development has been amazing. I mean, completely. I've been very impressed. And this is the shot in the arm that Colorado needs. I mean, it's weird to see Colorado football be so dormant for so long. I mean, they haven't been good since Barnett. When you say, I mean, they had that 1 year with McIntyre, but I mean, sustained success.
They were okay with Hawkins. Had a couple of years where they were okay, but yeah, it hasn't been. They haven't been at the upper end of the Big 8 or the Big 12 or the Pac-12, in quite some time. And I think that Coach Prime is one of the guys that can do it, and I think he can get it done. So this is a huge move. I believe in Coach Prime. I got to be honest. I was a little hesitant about him coaching. At first, I was like, is this guy really, want to be a coach? Is he all in as a coach? And then I went and I watched him coach, here in town when he was coaching high school, and he was the offensive coordinator there. And he did a really good job, and I was very impressed. And then he moved to Jackson and has turned that program around and proved he can recruit, proved he can coach. And I think he's going to get it done, man. I got to be honest. I've got some faith in him.
I do too. I mean, I'm really going to be interested to see who brings his coordinators, because, I mean, he's got a laundry list of people he could really contact, but what's he really good at? Culture. I mean, that's the one thing that 60 Minutes article interview really showed me, is this guy really is good at culture. When he goes in to recruit, he's recruiting mothers and fathers who remember, heck, they remember him from his days at Florida State, the Atlanta Falcons, San Francisco, Dallas. I mean, they remember him, what he was, and the impact he had on the game.
Well, and that's the thing, is that, Coach Prime remembers when Colorado was legit. When Coach Prime was playing, Colorado was one of the best programs in the country year in and year out. And Coach Prime knows that. He remembers that. And he knows about the tradition at that school. And I think he's going to bring it back. And he's proven that he can recruit. There's no doubt about it. He's proven that he knows how to coach. And he's going to be able to bring kids to Colorado that may have not gone to Colorado otherwise. I mean, hell, he got the number one player in the country to come to Jackson State. If you can do that, I think you can bring some kids to Boulder and get them to Colorado, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we know the guy's got contacts in Florida. We know the guy's got contacts in Texas. You get California involved too as well, which Colorado did incredibly well when McCartney was there. I mean, the sky's the limit on what the Colorado could get back to quickly.
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think we've got to also mention there's I don't know if it's been finalized yet, but the word is that Liberty has hired Coach Chadwell from Coastal Carolina to be their next head coach. I think this is a great move by Liberty. I think that I cannot believe, honestly, that no one else has hired Jamie Chadwell up to this point. 31-6 at Coastal Carolina over the last 3 years. So I don't know. I don't understand why he wasn't hired anywhere else before this, but apparently now he's been hired at Liberty, 7-year deal, $4 million per year. What do you think about Chadwell going to Liberty?
What were the numbers?
7-year contract, $4 million per year.
Where does Liberty have this money? I mean,
I
seriously, when I heard $4 million a year, I'm like, what? Like, I couldn't believe the amount of money they have. And I kept hearing from other podcasts about, oh yeah, they're rolling in the cash. I'm like, wow. I'm like, it makes me believe, why didn't the American go after Liberty if they've got that kind of money?
Yeah, but I think they should have.
It blows me away how Turner Gill and Hugh Freeze has really blown up that program. I mean, just taking them from not having a program to being a very decent Division I team.
Oh yeah, no, they are. They go out and play people too now.
Yeah.
They're not scared to put you on the schedule, and
Yeah.
that's what I really have respect for Liberty football now. Is they've been putting some guys in the league. Having Malik Willis there and the success he's had really put eyeballs on that program. And now I think this is a huge move for Liberty because they lost Hugh Freeze, and you're like, hey, maybe they're going to lose this momentum. Maybe this thing that's been going on at Liberty is over. And no, bam, here they go today at 9 a.m. in the morning. It's basically being announced that they're signing Jamie Chadwell, who to me has proven a lot of things at his stops at Charleston Southern and Delta State, North Greenville, and obviously Coastal Carolina. I got to be honest with you. I watch probably 30 freaking college football games a weekend minimum. I didn't know that Coastal Carolina had a football program until Jamie Chadwell showed up. And I think you have to give him a lot of credit for winning at the clip he did at Coastal. So I think this is a huge move for Liberty, and I think they continue on winning with him at the helm.
I hear now that Coastal is going to probably target Tim Beck. To be the NC State offensive coordinator, to be the coach. I'm really kind of shocked they're not looking at Willie Korn. I think that is a name that we are going to hear more and more in the years coming up. Willie Korn is a hell of an offensive coordinator. I mean, if you haven't had a chance to watch Coastal's offense, watch it. It is very interesting and hard to defend.
And he was the offensive coordinator and also was at Clemson for a time. I'm shocked no one's hired him too. But Liberty is in Lynchburg, Virginia, so that you know. I'm not surprised that some people don't know where it is because they've kind of blown up the last couple of years and put themselves on the map. And the big thing to me was watching the ESPN show about the pro day that they had there this past year with Malik Willis, and there was they had to like borrow chairs from this local banquet company because they didn't have enough chairs to set up for people that were all coming in to see Malik Willis. And I was just like, man, this is so huge for this program. And
they've got $4 million a year for Jamie Chadwell, but they don't have money for chairs. This is the whole thing that's just mind blowing to me.
No, man, they're doing a great job. I think that's a huge hire, and I think Liberty keeps rolling. And it looks also like you said, Coach Beck is going to be hired to replace him, and he was the offense coordinator at NC State.
Yep,
and
he's been around a lot.
He did a pretty good job. He did a pretty good job there, honestly. He served as an assistant at Texas. He was an assistant at Ohio State. He was an assistant at Nebraska. And, we'll see how that one goes. I'm not as fired up about that hire as I am the Chadwell hire, but not a bad one as far as name recognition goes. And also it looks like USF, South Florida, has hired their new coach as they take the man from right down the street, Mr. Alex Golesh from Tennessee. From Tennessee. They've hired him at South Florida now. What do you think about him getting hired at UCF?
Well,
USF. Excuse me.
First thing, talking about Tim Beck. I mean, to go way back, he was the head coach. His first head coaching job was at Swaharo in Arizona, where the Dalton boys played at in high school football too. A huge powerhouse program in the Arizona area. But Golesh, I think, is a great hire. I mean, first and foremost, the guy can recruit. And I think you got to recruit at South Florida because there is a wealth of talent in that I-4 corridor that I think really hasn't been tapped well as of late. I mean, they could bring the kids in, but they're not developing them. And it'd be interesting to see what Golesh has done, can do in Tampa with the Bulls.
Yeah, there's no doubt. So lots of coaching moves. I think pretty much almost every job is set at this point, but we'll keep breaking it down. Everybody go check out our YouTube page, Man Coverage. Put in Man Coverage Nate or Man Coverage James, and it'll show up. You can see we've got all our interviews from the past several months up on there cut out, so you can watch the shorts and check out all the interviews we've done, and also the full-length shows are there in case anybody's missed them. So go to YouTube, check that out, and check out all the man coverage stuff. And we're going to watch a little Army-Navy. We're going to get the college football playoff going. And, wow, we're going to put a big red bow on another college football season. So
it's going to be great, man. Love bowl season. It's the happiest time of the year.
No doubt. I'm also going to be very happy when we get this 12-team playoff rolling, because we should have done this probably about 10 years ago.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks to everybody for tuning in today. We will be doing the show next week. We'll break down all the conference players of the year, our overall college football players of the year. We'll wrap up this coaching carousel, and we'll preview the college football playoff. All right?
Perfect.
Keep your chin up, buddy.
All right, man. See you soon.
See you.